If you mention the name Dennis Rodman to a casual sports fan or anyone who lived through the 1990s, the same exact images pop into their head. They remember the neon hair dye that changed colors every single week. They remember the wedding dress he wore to a bookstore to marry himself. They remember the headbutting of referees, the high-profile romance with Madonna, and the legendary mid-season benders in Vegas with Carmen Electra. To the casual observer, Dennis Rodman was a walking circus. He was a pop culture distraction who somehow managed to latch onto two of the greatest dynasties in basketball history just by being weird. But listen to me very carefully, because that narrative is the greatest illusion in the history of professional sports. In this video, I am going to open up an autopsy on a career that completely defies the laws of sports psychology, societal norms, and team economics, because I am going to be breaking down the total, unvarnished truth of Dennis Rodman, aka The Worm. Behind the tattoos, behind the piercings, and behind all of the headline-grabbing lifestyle sat one of the most brilliant, pathologically dedicated, and tactically flawless basketball geniuses to ever step foot on a hardwood floor. You do not win 5 NBA championships by accident. You do not capture back-to-back DPOY awards as a non-scorer by fluke. You do not lead the NBA in total rebounding for 7 consecutive seasons, standing at barely 6'7" in a league ruled by 7-foot physical giants, unless you possess an intellectual processing speed that borders on the supernatural. Dennis Rodman did something that no other player in history has ever done. He completely mastered the art of dominating a basketball game without scoring a single point. He was an absolute mathematical anomaly who weaponized psychological warfare and mastered the structural physics of the ball coming off the rim. But his life was a dangerous, razor-thin tightrope walk between absolute basketball mastery and total self-destruction. In this video, I'm going to be looking past the tabloid headlines, and I'm going to look at the film. I'm going to be breaking down his impossible journey from a homeless airport janitor to a Hall of Fame legend. I'm going to examine the specific physics behind his legendary rebounding, and I'm going to expose how his chaotic lifestyle was actually the fuel that made him completely unbeatable on the court. Please drop a like on this video and make sure to hit subscribe with notifications turned on, so that way you don't miss any more videos, because these videos do take a long time to produce, and I do post daily. Other than that, let's go deep into the beautiful madness of Dennis Rodman. To understand why Dennis Rodman's lifestyle and mind became so volatile during his prime, you have to realize that he had the most improbable, traumatizing path to the NBA of pretty much any superstar in history. Dennis Rodman was not a high school phenom. He wasn't a McDonald's All-American. When he graduated high school in Dallas, Texas, he was barely 5 feet 11 inches tall. He didn't play organized high school basketball, and he was completely invisible to the sports world. Instead, he took a job as a night janitor at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. He was a homeless, directionless kid sleeping on friends' couches, getting arrested for stealing watches out of an airport gift shop on a dare. He was a kid drifting toward absolute oblivion. And then a literal medical miracle happened. At age 20, Rodman underwent a massive, agonizing late growth spurt, shooting up to 6'7" tall in a matter of months. His body changed, his wingspan stretched, and suddenly the basketball universe took notice. He clawed his way into a small NAIA school called Southeastern Oklahoma State, where he didn't just play, he feasted, averaging 25 points and 16 rebounds a game through sheer, unadulterated motor. When the Detroit Pistons drafted him 27th overall in the second round of the 1986 draft, Rodman was already 25 years old. Think about how insane that is in modern terms. Most players at 25 are entering their second contracts, and most players get drafted at age 19 now. Rodman was a rookie at age 25. But he landed in the absolute perfect incubator, Chuck Daly's bad boys Detroit Pistons. This team didn't play pretty basketball given their nickname. Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Joe Dumars won by physically intimidating you, choking out your passing lanes, and imposing a brutal defensive law on the court. Rodman fit in perfectly. He became the ultimate weapon in this system. He was a hyper-athletic lean forward who could slide his feet with elite perimeter guards like Michael Jordan and then turn around and bang bodies with physical low-post centers like Patrick Ewing. He won 2 championships in Detroit in 1989 and 1990. He captured back-to-back DPOY awards in 1990 and 1991. He was the ultimate blue-collar, quiet soldier. But behind that quiet exterior, a psychological storm was building. Chuck Daly was a father figure to Rodman, the first real stability he had really ever known. When Daly resigned in 1992 and the bad boy Pistons began to break apart, Rodman's mental health also fell apart and it completely fractured. It culminated in an infamous night in February 1993. Rodman was found by police asleep in his truck in the Detroit Pistons arena parking lot with a loaded rifle. He has openly admitted that on that night he didn't kill himself. Instead, he killed the old Dennis Rodman. The quiet, conforming, people-pleasing version of himself was erased. Out of that dark night emerged the Worm, a man who decided he was going to live entirely on his own terms, express his identity vividly, and let the rest of the world deal with his consequences. Before we look at the tattoos and the parties and the drama, let's just look strictly at the basketball tape, because what Dennis Rodman did on the court from a statistical perspective is completely unprecedented. In 1991 through 1992, Rodman averaged a mind-melting 18.7 rebounds per game. Not points, 18.7 rebounds per game. Just to put that in perspective, the regular season leader in rebounds today usually hovers around 12, maybe 13. Rodman grabbed nearly 19 boards a night while playing over 40 minutes a game for a slow-paced Detroit Pistons team. Now, when we think about rebounding, the casual fan most likely assumes it is just about jumping high or being big, but it's not. Rebounding is a complex combination of geometry, spatial processing, and physical stamina, and Dennis Rodman was the Albert Einstein of conquering the glass. Rodman famously treated warm-ups not as a time to loosen up, but as a scientific laboratory. While his teammates were taking practice shots, Rodman would stand near the baseline completely still, watching the ball leave their hands. He wasn't looking at the net, he was counting the rotations on the ball. He memorized the exact shooting trajectory of every single star in the league. He knew that if Michael Jordan shot from the right wing, a miss was statistically 70% more likely to bounce long toward the opposite left block. He knew that if Scottie Pippen shot a flat three-pointer from the top of the key, the ball would hit the back iron and ricochet high into the center of the paint. Let's break down his exact physical protocol for clearing the glass. We're going to start with the premature box out, which is the moment the ball leaves the shooter's hand and before it even reaches the apex of its flight. Rodman stops looking at the ball. Instead, he immediately hunts out the opposing team's best rebounder, initiates physical contact, and establishes his base lower than theirs, effectively locking them beneath the rim. Rodman rarely tried to catch the ball with two hands on the initial bounce if he was crowded. Instead, he mastered the art of the tip dribble. He would use his elite second jump vertical speed to tip the ball straight up into the air over the outstretched hands of taller centers, keeping the play alive until he could clear space. The second Rodman secured the ball with two hands, his body was already turning in mid-air. He didn't look to pad his stats by holding the ball or dribbling up court. He fired immediate lightning-fast outlet passes to his guards, launching the fast break before his feet even settled on the floor. And if that sounds familiar, he played ball very similar to how Bill Russell played basketball. And he gets comparisons when you talk about his rebounding and his defense. This structural dominance completely broke the spirit of opposing teams. Think about how demoralizing it is to play perfect defensive coverage for 24 seconds and force an elite team into a difficult, heavily contested miss, only for a 6'7" man with neon pink hair to fly out of nowhere, snatch the ball, reset the shot clock, and give his team another 24 seconds of life. He was an elite floor general on the glass. He led the league in rebounding for 7 consecutive years under 3 completely different franchise structures. He was an absolute engine of extra possessions. In 1993, Rodman was traded to the San Antonio Spurs to pair up with David Robinson. This is where the cultural transformation of Dennis Rodman officially exploded into mainstream media. San Antonio was a conservative, straight-laced, highly disciplined organization. David Robinson was a military veteran, a deeply religious man, and a clean-cut superstar. Rodman arrived as a tattooed, leather jacket-wearing outlaw who was actively dating Madonna. The culture clash was immediate, volatile, and ultimately toxic. During his only 2 seasons in San Antonio, Rodman completely stopped conforming to the traditional rules of being an NBA player. He would show up to the official team planes late, he would get ejected from games deliberately, and during timeouts, while the coach was drawing up tactical plays on the clipboard, Rodman would sit completely away from the huddle on the baseline, take his shoes off, and bleed his own thoughts onto the floor. But look at the raw production despite the chaos. He still won the rebounding titles both years, averaging 17.3 and 16.8 boards per game. He was an asset on the floor, but a psychological nightmare for the front office. The tipping point came in the 1995 Western Conference Finals against Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets. Rodman openly revolted against the coaching staff's defensive schemes. He refused to double-team Olajuwon, leaving David Robinson on an absolute island to get dismantled by the Dream. Rodman was suspended by the team, vilified by the local media, and labeled as an uncoachable locker room cancer who was officially radioactive to the rest of the league. By the summer of 1995, San Antonio wanted him gone at any cost. They were willing to trade a multi-time rebounding champion and defensive anchor for pennies on the dollar just to cleanse their facility of his energy. His career looked like it was heading toward an early, controversial grave. But across the league, the ultimate basketball Zen master saw a missing puzzle piece. In the fall of 1995, the Chicago Bulls traded for Dennis Rodman. It is one of the greatest calculated gambles in sports history. Michael Jordan had just returned from his baseball retirement, Scottie Pippen was entering his prime, and the Bulls needed a physical interior enforcer to replace Horace Grant. Phil Jackson, the ultimate master of human psychology, realized that you couldn't handle Dennis Rodman by locking him in a cage. You had to just let him breathe. Jackson famously met with Rodman and established a simple, unspoken agreement. Give me absolute 110% intensity for 2 hours on the court, and I don't care what you do for the other 22 hours of the day. This compromise birthed the greatest 3-year team run in modern basketball history. The Bulls won 72 games in 1996, cruised to a championship, and secured a historic second three-peat of the Michael Jordan era. Dennis Rodman wasn't just a piece, he was the defensive ceiling of that team. He allowed the Bulls to run a revolutionary, switch-everything defensive system next to Jordan and Pippen. But as the pressure of the dynasty built toward its final year in 1997 to 1998, Rodman's need for an escape valve reached a historic boiling point. In January 1998, feeling completely burnt out by the relentless media grind and the structural demands of the triangle offense, Rodman approached Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan with a wild request. He needed a 48-hour mid-season vacation to Las Vegas. Think about how unprecedented this is. Imagine a starting star on an elite championship contender today walking up to his coach in the middle of January and asking him to go to Vegas to party for 2 days. They would be suspended almost instantly. But Phil Jackson, arguably the greatest coach of all time, said yes. Rodman took off for Sin City with Carmen Electra, and the 48 hours passed. Then 72 hours passed. Rodman didn't show up to practice. He was spotted drinking at nightclubs, jumping on stage, and living like an absolute rock star, pretty much living his best life. The situation got so absurd that Michael Jordan himself had to board a flight, travel to Vegas, walk straight into Rodman's hotel room, pull him out of bed, and physically escort him back to the Chicago Bulls practice facility. But here is the absolute genius of Dennis Rodman. He didn't return out of shape or toxic. He showed up to practice late in pajama pants. He ran the team's conditioning drills full speed, and he beat everyone in the shuttle runs, and he went right back to tearing down 15 rebounds a game on his way to another championship ring. Later that same exact year, during the 1998 NBA Finals against Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz, Rodman skipped a mandatory finals practice session. And where did he go? He hopped on a private jet to Detroit to appear on national television on WCW Monday Nitro, swinging a chair around with Hulk Hogan and the NWO. The media blasted him, his teammates were frustrated, but 48 hours later in Game 4, Rodman played historic lockdown defense on Karl Malone. He clamped him down the stretch, and he helped secure the Chicago Bulls the title. His lifestyle wasn't a distraction that took away from his basketball. It was a psychological release valve that allowed him to maintain his elite kamikaze intensity on the NBA floor. He needed the chaos of the night to survive the absolute pressure of the day. Dennis Rodman finished his career after short stints with the Lakers and Mavericks, leaving behind a legacy that will never, ever be matched. When we look back at the history of the NBA, we see great scorers, great playmakers, and great anchors. We may never see another rebounder on Dennis Rodman's level again, but we will for sure never see another Dennis Rodman. He remains the ultimate basketball outcast who forced the world to accept him entirely on his own terms. He proved that you don't have to fit into a corporate box to achieve immortality. He showed that individuality, when backed up by an unmatched work ethic and an elite tactical mind, is an absolute superpower on the court. He wasn't a sideshow. He was a 5-time NBA champion who sacrificed his bones, his blood, and his sanity to the hardwood floor. But now I do want to hear from you guys, as always. Where does Dennis Rodman rank on your all-time defensive list? I think he's got to be top 2. But do you think a player with his exact chaotic lifestyle, do you think he could survive in the modern, hyper-scrutinized social media era of the NBA today? Or was he a relic of a beautiful, wild 90s culture? Make sure to drop your thoughts, your personal stories, and your takes in the comments below. And please do me a massive favor. Make sure to like and subscribe with notifications turned on, because I do post daily NBA content and these videos take a very long time to produce. But other than that, that's going to do it for this video. I do appreciate every single one of you guys for watching this video and for just watching my channel in general.